Hi students, welcome to Year 9 Science and Unit 2, Our Amazing Earth. This is video number 11 and we're going to look at global volcanism. So now what we want you to start to do is to use your knowledge of plate tectonics to explain the distribution and incidence of volcanic eruptions around the globe. So we've looked up to this point at a number of different areas of evidence that link that theory of plate tectonics to observation. That is, things like continental drift, and seafloor spreading are things which we can use to explain on the basis of our plate tectonics theory. But there's additional evidence or additional observations that we can make that help us to provide even more evidence for this idea of the Earth's lithosphere being split into different plates that move relative to one another. When we map the global position of volcanoes, we notice a very high correlation with the plate boundaries. One of the things that I can't easily do on the computer here, but which we will do in the classroom, is actually overlay our maps of the distribution of volcanoes against our map of the boundaries between the different plates. And to see exactly how close that correlation is. But if you go back to one of the previous videos, or if you've actually got a map that you can quickly look at while you're looking at this, you'll notice it's very, very high level of correlation between the distribution of volcanoes and where different plate boundaries occur around the globe. Now there are exceptions, and one really good thing to focus on, particularly because it's in the area that we live, is the so-called Ring of Fire. So here is the Ring of Fire. You can actually see it on the map here. And it's sort of this little distribution of volcanic activity, which isn't quite a closed ring, but it's pretty close. Sitting all the way around the Pacific Ocean. Now Australia isn't part of the Ring of Fire, but it's very close to a couple of countries that are. And you can see you can almost have lost New Zealand on this map because it's sitting right in the centre of where that Ring of Fire is. There's two important things to say about the Ring of Fire. Firstly, this is a really important indicator of some plate boundaries, and you might remember the Philippines plate was another smaller plate that's slightly to the northwest of Australia, and you can see there's a little bit more volcanic activity in that area as well. But also we can see the whole of that west coast of South America, where the Andes mountain ranges are, volcanic activity in there, going up through North America. We know that there is some conservative boundaries there. We know there's some earthquake activity in that area. But then you've got the Aleutian Islands, which are kind of sitting up to the north. And we come down through the side of Asia, through some of the little islands in there, all the way back through the Philippines, Indonesia, New Guinea, and back down to New Zealand. Notice too, though, and one of the things that's really important that we will need to have a look at is there's also volcanic activity. We can see volcanoes in the Hawaiian Islands. Now, the Hawaiian Islands are smack in the middle of this enormous plate. It's not part of the Ring of Fire, and yet there is volcanic activity there. So whenever we're looking, we talk about a high degree of correlation. We're talking about the fact that the distribution of volcanoes seems to be highly linked to where different plate boundaries are, particularly if you think about some of those ones that we've looked at with those convergent boundaries. But there are differences, and it's not the whole picture to say it's just about where two plates meet. So let's have a look at two examples of volcanic island formation and the two different stories that we can put together to explain why they occur. So two important phenomena, two places where we've seen volcanic activity as part of our Pacific Ring of Fire are the Aleutian Islands which form this island arc. You can see that's happening very, very close to the North Pole in that sort of little island arc linking the United States with Asia, with Russia. And you can see that we have a number of islands that are sort of sitting in this island arc. Now, this is a convergent boundary. In fact, this is ocean. You may remember when we were talking previously about plate boundaries, we looked at the fact that when ocean and ocean crust converge on one another, that one of those plates will subduct, will move underneath the other one. And the consequence of that is a deep trench, and you can almost see from the difference in the color here, the deep trench that's occurring on the side where subduction is happening. And beyond that, so the boundaries are pretty much that marker of that subduction zone. Beyond that is where we said the material that's diving down is going to be heated and then is going to rise back up again, and that forms this island arc in behind that subduction zone. So we can see where the two plates are meeting one another, and we've got that subduction zone that's occurring as a result of that meeting, and then behind that, on really what might be the concave side, if you like, that's where our volcanic activity is, that's where our island arc is formed. Now, the Hawaiian Islands don't do that. If you remember from the previous slide, the Ring of Fire is all around the Hawaiian Islands, but it doesn't include them. They're kind of sort of sitting in the middle. So that means this can't be a convergent boundary story. It has to be something else. In fact, this is an example of what we call hot spot volcanism. So what we believe is happening is that there's actually a hot spot. We've talked about these before, hot spots in the mantle where material is going to rise through the mantle into the crust and potentially come to the surface as volcanic activity, as lava. Now, most of the time when we've talked about that up to this point, we've been talking about things like mid-ocean ridges where two plates are actually diverging and moving apart from one another. But what if this hotspot is actually not at the edge of a plate, but somewhere around the center? Then if the plate is moving at a certain speed in a certain direction, then this material that's going to come up is going to create little islands or little volcanoes that perhaps if they're there for long enough will even break the surface of the ocean and appear as distinct islands. But because the plate is moving, it's going to continue to move. A little bit later on, it might be a little further on. So that means there'd be another island further on, which was one that was previously produced when that section of the plate was sitting directly above the hotspot. So you can see the formation of island chains, if we can look at their age, and what we notice about this is the age increases as we go from Hawaii back towards Kauai. So that's telling us something about the direction in which the plate has been moving, and also the size of these islands also gives us another little bit of an idea about how long each of those regions was sitting above what we presume is a hot spot in the mantle. Don't forget, when we've tried to explore the Earth's interior, we can't get very far. There's been a few projects, including the MOHO project, which was designed to try and get as deep as we possibly could. We can't get through the crust, so we don't actually know what's going. No as in no can see what's going on underneath the surface. So what we have to do is we have to look at the evidence that we have, the data that we can gather, and build together a story, a model, a picture of what we think is going on. Because the Hawaiian Islands are not part of these plate boundaries. We need a different story to explain their volcanic activity, and the fact that they're on a large plate that's moving in a certain direction, that's perhaps moving across a hotspot, is suggesting to us not only that these islands have formed over time, the plate has been moving, which is a reason for the difference in the age of each of these islands, but it's also a reason why some of these islands may be what we might call extinct in terms of volcanic activity, and others which are active. So when we look at the distribution of volcanoes around the Earth, we get a very high correlation with plate boundaries, but we do need to remember that there are a couple of different explanations for why volcanic activity occurs, and we may look at different types of volcanoes and some of the aspects of volcanic geology in the classroom. But this hopefully gives you just a little bit of an idea of another piece of evidence that links the geological formations that we see with the plate tectonics theory. Thanks for watching.